SGC here, and we are back for a final impression. So yes, I binged it. I binged Alice in Borderland, and oh my goodness, like, in my first impression, I wasn't too excited about this, but I thought, hey, I like Sweet Home better as a first episode, so maybe I'll get this over with before that. So like, in case I finish Sweet Home, it was amazing, come back to this, and this is kind of like disappointing. So let's just get the things I don't want to eat first. So like vegetables. But anyway, so 8 episodes. So this is 8 episodes. I think Sweet Home is 10. But it felt just like what I felt. But it had much more heart to it. I would say the second episode got me in terms of like the physical prowess and the whole team aspect. Because if you remember, the first episode is a game with the 5 of them. And then the next one is the tag game, and then the third episode. That is where it really got me. It definitely reminded me, especially with the Neck Bombs Battle Royale, but you know, less just physical Hunger Game survival. So there's that, and I think I really dug it. And episode 4, there was more of that team aspect of things. And then we get more information. And I always feel like this is like the crux of a lot of this genre, is that when you start off with very little people, you have to build up to a point where there's tons of people. And more often than not, when the story goes to the tons of people, it sort of falls apart. Just recent memory in terms of comparison's sake, you know, Train to Busan. Start off with the kid and his dad, her dad, and you get a little bit of ragtag, and then it's still relatively okay with the group settings. But let's say you go to Peninsula, where ragtag, and then they meet the society. So I think it's not a group like number aspect of things. It's just when things are very structured, that's when you know it's gonna fall apart. So I do hope that we see more of like we visited society and then we leave this society intact type of thing. And if I remember, I don't know, maybe there was a series that I watched that they randomly stumbled upon some place and then they figured out it was crazy, so they just left, and that was it. And I really did enjoy that, because you just sort of go in and be like, okay, this is not for me, and then leave, and that's it. Instead of like, go in, oh my god, this is not for me, but you know, we somehow, because we're main characters, we flip the switch and everything goes to shits just cause. So looking back, 8 episodes, we have that issue here. I feel like the arc with the beach itself, there were character moments that were good. Like, for example, total props to this Netflix production, or I don't even know if this was in the original manga, but the whole transgender character, that was great. Like, the fact that it existed is great. It's just, do we need it? No. It's just like, why do we need to have a reason to have it? And it was fine. And definitely, it's something that I would say Japan has an issue with, for sure. So I feel like this brings it up to the forefront of like, hey, this happens, it happens. Figure it out, deal with it. Though the whole character flashback, building their tiny stories up, did feel really awkward for me, because they didn't really do that beyond, say, the main characters. So these are more side supporting, and they do play a bigger part, but in the sense where it sort of feel like formulaic, as in like, oh, this person's getting a bigger role, so we gotta give them a bigger background story. But then there's like other interesting characters who just name drops where they came from, and that there's nothing from them. I guess there's no conflict, but like, just because their role, I guess that's why they needed a bigger, I don't know, you make them feel more human. But I feel like, no, sometimes bad people are just bad, and I don't need to feel like, oh, they were this in the past, so that's why everything they're doing now that's horrible is justified. No, not really. And yeah, so I think my biggest gripe is that the latter half of the season, there's again less focus on the games, more focus on the drama and not even the mental game, really. I mean, later on, like almost near the end, season finale type of thing, things starts rolling, and then there's that mentalness, but it just seems like a mindless kind of thing. So I really dug the whole mind game in like episode 3, 4, and yeah. So overall, it is interesting. I would say definitely worth your time to watch. They do, you know, switch back and forth with how they do the blood effects, which is nice because sometimes the more atypical, who cares about that death type of thing is like CG, and where like the more impactful deaths are just like full on blood splatters, which is great. And I think the biggest thing for me is that it is a Japanese culture thing. If you watch a lot of Japanese movies in this sort of vibe, there's a lot of there's a tendency to be very like willpower and let me make a grand speech and you will all listen to me and be like persuaded through my speaking, and let's talk about our emotions. So I feel like there was one movie that I watched in VIF that was like that as well. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Special actors did it great. There was a lot of talking, but it's very like narratively driven, that he's like really like dealing with this thing because it is part of his character. But here, for example, it's very like, I know the answer, but I'm just gonna mumble like all this will and all this like, let me like purify you while, you know, there's a countdown. Like it just doesn't work in that setting and context when 15 minutes left and then you're like, I know what to do, but let me talk first and talk about him as a character and his motivations and get it down because I understand him, because what happened to me in episode 3 I understand. Like that just killed the tension. And I don't know why, like even in this day and age, like Japanese writers have a tendency to really build the tension and then, you know, throw in tons of dialogue, and you're just like, why? Like, granted, it would make things a lot faster, and then you would skip out the emotional beats of everything, and then you would have less flashbacks. So I am conflicted on how they would have shot this, but then it's like that urgency. Like, how do you address this character building moment while you have a timer going? So it's like, should there be a timer going? Should there be a character build up moment? I mean, the character build up moment is nice, but where does it go? And where it goes, I would definitely say like, maybe not needed. And the tension building, that was tension. But I do like the ending. I was kind of afraid of where they were going with it, but I'm glad where they went with it, and I can't wait to see. Like, will we get a season 2? Who knows? Like, is this being received well? Are you watching it? Netflix looks at the numbers, so more people watch it. Maybe more people will watch it because it'll start rising. Was it even in top 10 in Canada? I wasn't really looking for it, but you know, it came out 10 days ago, and yeah, so I would definitely recommend this just for a change of pace. If you have seen the Japanese stuff on Netflix Canada, or if you haven't, it's also a great plus, especially if you know, are into sort of like the Hunger Games kind of vibe, but more gore and more mind games and more intense moral obligations and less like let's uprise and save society type of thing. Now, granted, all that said, the acting, it comes and goes. Sometimes there's some good moments, sometimes it's just overact. There is one dude who I swear to God, like, pissed me off every time that he's on screen. And if I got his name right, I think the actor is Dori Sakurada. So he did a good job in terms of playing that character. Because, you know, if you can piss people off, like the kids who piss you off in movies, because they're acting, is good. So this person, oh my god, like his character was just so annoying, and every time was just like over the top. And there were moments where it broke, where it's just like, oh, you're overacting, and it's just like kind of silly. But there were times where it's just like, okay, it works. But I think like in the narratively, it overall it works. So there's that. And everyone else is, you know, they're trying to be whatever. I don't know. Some of them just like really phoned it in, I feel. We do have someone that I actually know. Well, it was actually an actor that I knew in this, so that was a plus. I was like, oh hey, I recognize this guy. But anyways, Alice in Borderland, recommend it. 8 episodes, 50-ish minutes per episode, and definitely if you haven't been in this like death game, whatever, definitely give it a go. I would definitely say like the first 3 episodes really show you what kind of thing this could have been, and yeah, that's what's really dragged me in, was like the 3rd episode of just that mind game of just that gut punch to the reality of their situation. Now granted, I always am like, hey, you know, if you can't get me in the first episode, bye-bye. So there's that. So if you can't get behind the first episode, I don't blame you, because it could have been done a lot better. But, you know, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a season 2, so, or hopefully anyways. If it gets canceled, I'll be just pretty sad. But anyways, with all that said, keep liking, keep watching, and subscribe, and share, because sharing is caring. And that's it for this final impression for Alice in Borderland Season 1. Stay safe and take care. Out.